I didn't know an awful lot about Julen Lopetegui before West Ham were linked with him. In many respects, once it became clear that he was going to be our head coach, I found myself scrambling around. I found myself joining the dots. It's turned out I did sort of know about him. I knew about his record in Spain with the Spanish national team, very impressive. I remember watching the news and hearing the fallout about him basically losing his job there because of the Real Madrid stuff. Obviously, I thought, that's the guy, it's the Sevilla guy, right? Of course, we played them. And then I sort of, as I say, joined the dots for, okay, Wolverhampton Wanderers. And my knowledge was a little bit better. But I didn't have an encyclopedic knowledge. I'm not going to, even though I knew the vague overview of those stories, I'm not going to sit here and say, I know exactly how he played. And I relied on people who knew far more about it than me to let me know. But there were two reasons of concern, particularly for someone like me. I say, get Amorim in. I was calling for Ruben Amorim before they even flew him over for talks, right? I did a couple of videos. That was my first choice, right? But even before that happened, I was thinking, maybe De Zerbi, if we could get hold of him, or any number of other coaches. But it certainly wasn't Lopetegui. When I started to inquire and find out a little bit more about him, there were two major points of concern about him replacing David Moyes. Number one was that he didn't play particularly exciting football. And number two was that he did not promote youth players. That's what I was being told at the time. I did numerous videos about it. That was important because the context was that, a couple of the reasons why David Moyes was under scrutiny, there were lots more than this, was that the football was a bit crap and it turned out it was boring. Many times went to that stadium, particularly last season, and it was just boring, right? And the other thing was we had this great crop of young players who he didn't seem to want to promote youth. So when you hear you're going to get rid of this manager but you're going to appoint a new guy, what you don't want to see is the same traits, right? You want to think, okay, well, this is hopefully going to be something different. And I do think that Lopetegui does have a number of different traits. But those two stuck out. Boring football, won't promote youth. I think what happened was there'll be another video along tomorrow, basically, which is one of our patrons asked us some questions about Lopetegui, and myself and Gio have already done a video about it. We'll publish it tomorrow. But I think a lot of it got put to the back of my mind. I was sort of a little bit. I was quite pleased, but I think because I didn't initially want Lopetegui, then when I saw him interviewed and I saw a lot of the staff, listened to him talk, then listened to some other people who said some other things about him, I think I was sort of persuaded the other way and thought, okay, no, I'm not concerned anymore. So I think those two aspects, the unexciting football and the youth development, I put to the back of my mind. Once I had then seen pre-season, where he was playing, he had central midfield, two in central midfield, and he played Freddie Potts and Luis Orford. Thought, this is good. Looked to be Gideon Kadua was playing, Kaelan Casey featured. We were seeing quite a lot of Luis Guilherme, of course, only 18 years of age. And, of course, George Earthy was getting a go as well, wasn't he? Even, actually, Callum Marshall got on a few times, actually, at least twice during pre-season. So, do you know what? Maybe I'm guilty of reading too much into it, but I just didn't see any reason for concern. In many respects, I'd forgotten all about it. I had that suggestion that actually, be careful about getting Lopetegui in. He won't promote youth players, right? I thought, you know what, I'd forgotten all about it. Well, I've got to be honest, I was reminded about it yesterday. Yesterday was the first time I'd actually given it any thought at all. And it was with this John Egan stuff. And I'm talking primarily about Kaelan Casey, because what we've seen a number of players go out on loan. And Casey, one of Casey's big mate, of course, is George Earthy. So he's seen George go out to Bristol City on loan. So he's seen a lot of his mates go out on loan, and he's remained at West Ham, as has Luis Orford. And yesterday was a good day for burying bad news for the academy, because Luis Orford was paraded for signing his 5-year contract, which I think is great. That bit is great. That's the good news from the academy. But there was bad news yesterday for the academy, and it was the John Egan stuff. Because Kaelan Casey was remaining at West Ham, you have to assume that he was going to be used as a squad player. Nothing wrong with that at all. That's good. I don't think Kaelan Casey would complain that ahead of him in the pecking order were Max Kilman, Jean-Claire Todibo, Konstantinos Mavropanos, and possibly even an emergency Edson Alvarez could play there. No European football. It was still unlikely he was going to play, but he was a member of the squad. And he was going to see some bench time. And that would certainly have aided his education in that sense. And before I say what I'm about to say, I'm not expecting to see a squad of 25 young players. I know they don't count. You know what I'm saying. I don't expect... balance is fine. It was only yesterday I was reasoning that actually I didn't mind Rodriguez coming in. I didn't even mind Hummels coming in because of his age. Because I actually argued, actually, you know what? We've signed a couple of centre-backs in their mid-20s. And I made a good argument for it. So I don't expect to see a squad full of teenagers. But I do expect a little bit of balance. And I was definitely saying last season about David Moyes, OK, Moyes, yeah, I understand, but just chuck a couple on. Have a couple, do something. I know he did towards the end, but his job had gone by the time he chucked George Earthy on in the end, right? And I found myself wondering what Kaelan Casey would be thinking with this John Egan stuff. And all you can do is put yourself in the mindset of somebody else. I think if I was Casey or his dad or I'm far more likely to be the age of his dad than Kaelan Casey, of course. But I think I would have understood if Mats Hummels had come in. German international, World Cup winner, right? I think so. World Cup winner. Played in the Champions League final. That is a player of high pedigree. OK, he's getting on a bit, but you couldn't argue. I don't think you could argue. In many respects, I think I'd probably be thinking, or if I was his dad, or saying, well, actually, you can probably learn from this guy. Train with him for 6 months. This is going to be really good. My point is, if I was a young, upcoming, trophy-winning, FA Youth Cup-winning centre-back, the most promising central defender at the club, I would understand that I might drop down the pecking order one place if Mats Hummels came in. If a world-class player came in, you'd hold your hands up, say, fair enough. I've got to say I'd feel quite differently upon hearing that West Ham were not even going to hire John Egan. That we were so unconvinced, not just by Kaelan Casey, but by John Egan, that we could give him a trial against Dagenham and Redbridge. I wouldn't blame Kaelan Casey for saying, well, hold on a second, I played against Dagenham and Redbridge this season. I did all right. He was asked to play at right back, wasn't he? I think it's a little bit of a kick in the teeth, actually. John Egan, as Gio said to me during, we did yesterday's mug of tea over on Patreon. We were talking about John Egan. I can't even remember whether it was on camera or off camera. And Gio said, do you not remember who he is? Do you not know? He was at Sheffield United. I didn't. Again, I wasn't going to pretend that I did. So afterwards, I had a little look. So I pulled up Sheffield United's fixtures for last season. I think the first one I clicked on was the 2-2. We had the 2-2 that was Maxwell Cornet scored in that one. I had a little look, didn't see him on the back line. Looked on the bench, didn't see him on the bench. I then looked, there was another one. They lost 5-0 to Arsenal. Sheffield United and West Ham both got thumped by Arsenal. I went and looked there, couldn't see him on there. I then clicked up another 5 or 6 fixtures from the Premier League last season. Granted, I didn't look at all of their fixtures, but every time I clicked up one, I checked the starting lineup. He wasn't in there. To such a point, I thought, have I got this right? It's Sheffield United, right? Have I got this right? So I went and checked. In the end, I went onto a Sheffield United forum. And on the Sheffield United forum, I love forums. We started on a forum. Well, it's still there, hammerschat.com. It's the Hammers Chat forum. Links in the description below. Go and check it out, all right? So you'd always get the best information about a club from the forum members, right? So I'll go onto the Sheffield United forum. Went on there, had a look, and there was a thread at the top which said, John Egan about to sign for West Ham. Started reading down it. Well, it weren't pretty. Very quickly, it was explained why I hadn't seen him when I'd clicked on the fixtures. He was injured a lot last season, so the general consensus seemed to be that he played some cup games, didn't really feature much in the league, was injured. Quite a few of them like him. they think he's a tough tackler. And reading through the thread, tough tackler, but slow. Then there was some debate because Egan was close to signing for Burnley. There was some debate amongst the Blades fans as to whether or not they would have him back this season. So, obviously, they weren't even in, not even in the Premier League. Obviously, would they have him back this season? Some would, some wouldn't. So just get this right. All right, you're dealing with a central defender who spent the majority of his 31 years. He's obviously not playing football 31. He's 31 years of age, injury prone. Played for Southend, played for Gillingham, played for Brentford, not Premier League Brentford before they were in the Premier League. Sheffield United last season pretty much injured, and now the Sheffield United fan base is saying, some of them are saying, oh, we'd have him back, some are saying they wouldn't. I think my point is, and I've got nothing against Egan, and in many respects I feel a little bit bad even doing this video. Hopefully he won't see it, but it's not even about him, it's about Kaelan Casey. And it's about the academy, the bigger picture. Because by every measurement, this is a journeyman player. There's nothing outstanding about him at all. He's the type of player, to be fair, I know someone's going to say, hold on, he played for Republic of Ireland. I get it. But he is the type of player that if West Ham were going to go and loan a player to the Championship, and we were going to go and loan Kaelan Casey, we would expect Casey to start ahead of him. Because Casey is an outstanding young central defender, right? And I just look at that and I thought, well, what must he think? What must Casey think here? And I'm not looking to stir things up, far from it. And I know it's a slow news week and I know all that stuff. But it has genuinely annoyed me. And it's troubled me. Because now, if you don't know who Egan was, and I didn't, and now I've done my research, there you go, I share that. I share my research with you, right? That's what I know about Egan. Bearing in mind that's what he is, you can understand how your reaction, if you were, whatever, fourth choice central defender at West Ham, that you might view John Egan somewhat differently to Mats Hummels coming in. Mats Hummels, okay, yet fair enough, world-class player. Egan, you think, well, hold on a second, I'm better than this guy. And you'd have to believe you were, because I think everyone should have belief, but you'd be looking at it and you'd be thinking, this is blocking my pathway. Why wasn't I out on loan with everybody else? And the path to the contract seems so few obstacles, doesn't it? Perform well against Dagenham and Redbridge in a training game, and you might get given a contract. I just don't know how it's happened, honestly. I really, really don't. I might be making a fuss about nothing, but I go back to the start of the video and whatever it must have been, March, April last year. Sorry, this year, but you know what I mean. March, April, when people were saying, hold on a second, Lopetegui, be careful, he won't promote youth. And I guess I believed it, then I disbelieved it, then I forgot it. And now I've been reminded of it. And now I'm thinking, well, this ain't good. This ain't good. I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at somebody. I'm not even asking for Casey to be given a chance, by the way. I'm always mindful that someone will misconstrue what I'm saying. So there's no point going in there, and saying, well, hold on, so you think Casey should so you think Casey should start against Kilman? That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about him remaining as the fourth choice central defender for emergencies of getting some time on the bench. I'm looking at this now. And now I'm looking. I'm seeing the strike force of Antonio and Fulkrug and Ings. And I'm looking at Luis Guilherme, I don't know. I mentioned, didn't I, in the transfer window, maybe he should have been put on loan. I'm wondering what's going to happen. And I'm not trying to be a naysayer. I'm not trying to be a doom monger. I want to be proven wrong. And I hope to be. So this is not me saying Lopetegui out. I've said I will not judge, not even start to judge Lopetegui's style of play until October, November, or whatever it is. I really, really won't. And I think as a manager, he deserves time and lots of it. However, that doesn't mean that along the way Little things pop up in my mind that I won't say, hold on a second, that little accusation not promoting youth. Wonder if there's anything in it.